life drinker because of that. Another factor to that is just the quick checklist on Phenom's side. You don't always have to be able to infinite Shutterwalk your opponent in order to defeat them. Sometimes just a lot of damage, and then the Shutterwalk times 2 because of Saturday Night Chain Gangs is enough to just out-pressure Viper in some of those situations. That is a realistic possibility, and so I'd be interested to see if and when that game plan ever actually works. Viper starting out with a pretty poor, well, it was a much more poor opening hand before that draw, but still pretty poor overall, and I think that's where Fenom can find his edge, is being able to apply some pressure and keeping Viper on the back foot in those later turns where he needs to be drawing cards.
Well, Wild Growth is pretty much as good as it gets for Viper early on, and Fenom will just have to kind of pass over until his opponent can basically draw out and combo him. Coin Acolyte of Pain, just kind of a desperation, if you will, to get anything going.
Yeah, and some of the cool tools that Fenom has added into the deck are, I'm curious to see how active of a role they can play. You see Zentimo in the hand, and there's the card that pairs with it. Tidal Surge to be able to, fight against decks with the, massive life swings additionally to that. I think Tidal Surge is a really weird card to include in this deck, but a lot of times with Hex or with Tidal Surge, you can wipe out later game positions that your opponents can build, towards the middle stages of the game. That is a massive swing that can take place. So it's not a lot of damage here that's really being applied, and I think that's, probably Phenom's #1 priority. And drawing cards.
You talk about Spellstone, like you Tidal Surge it right back. Nourish off the top.
Yeah, that's a massive draw for Viper in this spot. So now, it was looking like Viper would probably have some breathing room in this one, but it's quickly going to get, pretty ugly for him.
Unity, precision, perfection.
Yeah, you can tell that Fenom is not feeling very good about this, just swiveling his chair back and forth, just waiting to see what else Druid can do.
Yeah, Fenom also a player that is not afraid to really show emotion when playing either. If Fenom gets frustrated in a certain spot, you're going to know that he's frustrated. So if you don't see it visually, he's just going to shrug it off and not really care that much.
Over on Viper's side, he has to free up hand space for Ultimate Infestation, and he already played 1 Arcane Tyrant. So if he holds on to a 5th card and will be drawing his 6th, then Ultimate Infestation will likely end up burning a card. And, there are a handful of cards that you could burn that are very significant, the most, of course, being Malygos. But you have to also be careful about a few other cards that might be really important. Alex Straza could be really nice. The Twig is also a really important one.
Yeah, Alex Straza has actually been one of the cuts from Viper's deck list. He's opted for double Faceless Manipulator.
Okay. Well, that's just super greedy.
Yeah.
Jeez.
One of the big benefits I have found for Faceless Manipulator is because Druid struggles a lot to cube decks, your opponents often just set up a cube. But when you have 2 Faceless Manipulators, it's much more difficult for them to do that. So it's an inclusion that allows you to still have the big Malygos pop-off turns, but at the same time also presents an objective for some of the cube decks out there. So, I've been seeing 2 Faces Manipulator crop up a little bit more in some Druid decks, and honestly, I quite like it. I think it's a very powerful tool that I was not sold on, and that Dr. J actually sold me on when discussing the deck list with me. But Zentimo getting some real respect here.
Doesn't want to lose to, like, an unstable evolution type scenario.
Yeah, that's just not in the deck.
No, right, but like if Hagatha ends up coming down or something like that, I guess it ends up killing Zentimo, but
it's just kind of a weird spot. I'm curious why you would ever hit Zent. Maybe it's like if it's bounced from Grumble, it could do something strange and powerful.
I guess so. You're right. It is. I'm just trying to justify why he'd want to do that. I personally feel like it's reaching, to try to justify it, but I mean, at the same time, Viper's not under serious threat of his life total. So leaving a 3/3 or 3-attack minion up is not nearly as big as potential shenanigans that Zentimo can create.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. And if you don't agree with Viper on that one, you may notice the Golden Celebration card back that he earned from making a championship and then qualifying for the World Championship afterwards.
Yeah, we have several people who are World Championship bound at this event. Killing All Day, Bloody Face, Viper.
Yeah.
And I gotta respect that they're still grinding through. They have all the reason to do what Frozen and Doc Pone and everyone did in the Winter Championship last year, where they just kind of chilled and said, you know what, I'm just going to focus on the rest of my life, so when I come to the World Championship, I'll be refreshed and excited, and I can kind of, come with a clear mind. These guys stay on the grind.
It's about that die-hard competition, and that's what I love to see is players who want to play. They don't care about the dollars. They don't care about anything else other than that title. That's what they're chasing
Being the best.
after.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, I respect that so much, and I don't know how these guys keep it up. It's honestly grueling sometimes just watching them play, let alone being the one who has to travel across continents in order to get to this point.
Just host a big $10,000 tournament at a taco stand. These guys would show up. It's got to draw attention. It's got to have prestige. Also, the benefit of faceless manipulators with Dream Petal Florist. That offers you a lot of very flexible play inside the deck as well. It'll play in a similar fashion, but it just always ends up being like this very unique style of play that I've experienced with Faceless Manipulator. I don't have too much of it play on myself, but I've practiced with people who are using it, and I've played against Druids who have surprised me with the second Faceless Manipulator, and it is quite surprising how strong that card has been.
Oh, yeah. I mean, with 2 Faceless Manipulators with Malagos, you can just finish off with the Moonfires.
Yeah.
It just does, what, 33 damage?
Yeah, a lot of times I've just been
32.
in spots where players, they play Malagos, I take it out, and then they floop, and then they Faceless Manipulator the flooped Malagos. And I'm like, oh, gosh, I'm just dead. Yeah, not a feeling you enjoy as Fenom having to clear off your own Mana-Tide Totem to wipe this up.
Yeah, I mean, he's got pieces of it. Grumble, Shutterwalk, Life Drinker, no Serenite Chain Gangs in the pool. So he's going to have to hope that Hagatha can stall out. Meanwhile, in Viper's land, a little bit too many cards to be holding, which is not exactly like a real problem for Druid, but
it is a problem.
It is
though.
a problem.
I mean, these are the kinds of turns that Fenom needs to win the game, is where Viper has to just spend mana to get a card out of hand so he can make space to draw more cards. Those turns are the worst kinds of ones that Viper's going to have for the rest of this game. And so if Fenom sees, 3 turns of that in a row, delighted to have that happen.
Yeah. Branching Pass and Spreading Plague are ways you can dump cards. Looks like Viper will do Branching Pass second.
Yeah. Obliges. It allows you to have that ability to draw that one single card, and then, maybe it makes a difference in the choice. Like maybe you see something weird and you go +1 attack. It's not really going to happen, but it's good muscle memory to have. Naturalized target here as well.
That's right. Finally, there's ways for Viper to dump very efficiently, and you got cheap Spellstones all at the same time too. You can do all of that. Maybe a second Spreading Plague used, because it's not like the board tends to go really wide until it's too late. The only time the board tends to get really wide is either they curve out perfectly or they get a big Shutterwalk.
Yeah. This is going to be one of those games where, Viper really does not have a liberty, I'd say, to use Faceless Manipulator flexibly. I think there's a small chance you could see it on a Mana-Tide Totem, but I would consider that, extremely rare when that circumstance comes up. Viper's going to have an extremely good reason to have that happen. And frankly, if that were to happen this turn, I really don't even think I would be able to spot why that would be the case. You're thinking about Volcanoes, you're thinking about Lightning Storm. There's just so many ways to have it get wiped out unfavorably and then have lost a valuable tool that he needs to just find another way to get cards out of hand.
Time waits for no one.
I'm curious if
I like this second Spreading Plague. I like dumping Naturalize, even the Spellstone.
I'm curious if there's ever like an argument for dumping both Spellstones in this spot. That's exactly what Viper's going to do.
Ooh,
Very
I like
desperate
that.
to just draw through.
That's clever.
He was taking an exceptional amount of time on this turn, and that's really where my head started to land. Is he's like, well, he's got to be thinking about dumping both Spellstones in that case.
Just needs to draw with Ultimate Infestation.
You might have to just risk drawing with Ultimate Infestation too. Like you might feel like you're falling so far behind that you got to get going. And so I think Saronite Chain Gang or not this turn is going to be the difference. And so now that Saronite's been found, Viper I think is more inclined to maybe burn a card or two, ripping an Ultimate Infestation.
But Phenom's also having hand space issues too. Remember, all these minions will generate another spell. Needs to get some out of his hand.
Yeah, that's an excellent point to make. Second Saronite Chain Gang is really the last vital card, I'd say, in Phenom's deck. Both Life Drinkers in there, Grumble's in there.
Yeah, I like dumping some of these spells too. Hex. Jeez. just such liberal use of some of the best removal spells in the game.
Yeah, I am a bit surprised that Fenom didn't go with like a healing rain in that spot. I don't think healing rain is like super vital. And this is also a common thing that you find in the double Faceless Manipulator decks is double Dream Petal Florist. It's the ability to discount Faceless and have it be a different style of attack than what you're necessarily used to. Oftentimes you use it for defense. And Viper just going to draw. This is risky. I think he's got to do it, though.
Wild Growth. Malfurion. Second Faceless.
Oh. Okay, so
he can be okay if he just dumps a card here.
If you play a minion, it opens you up to Mind Control tech. If you play a Moonfire, it's going to dampen your reach.
Your reach is still pretty good just with Swipe and Moonfire with two Malygos.
Now, mind you, the Twig is gone. So there's no Twig Hope.
Is he just going to take the Malygos potential burn again, like pass and then just see what happens?
Well, that's the tough call to make, and if there's someone who's going to do it, I think Viper is the kind of person who could. Going to sacrifice the Faceless Manipulator instead. Say, you know what, I have Floop, I got Faceless Manipulator, don't burn the walk and never be able to win.
I think it's too important. Like, Malygos means that he has 0% chance to win at that point. Because then his deck just has all combo pieces and no actual starter combo.
Yeah. Viper is a quite a calculated player, though. And so, again, if there's one person that I would pick out of the room to be able to make that and not really think much of it. I told you, he wears his emotions on his
He's so perplexed about what's happening right now.
He wears his emotions on his sleeve.
He's like, why would you do that into Mind Control tech? Why were you dumping a 0-mana Faceless? Like,
well,
wow, Lava Burst.
I think Fenom can, pretty reliably get to the point where he knows that Viper doesn't have Malygos in hand. That's a pretty telltale sign when your opponent's willing to use that vital of a tool, a zero-cost Faceless Manipulator, to just avoid burning a card. Just doesn't really get much more face-up than that. Round 4 starting to wrap up around here, too, and crowds starting to gather around.
Yeah. The standings are really shaping up. Whoa, what a call from Viper. The next draw was Malygos, which is exactly what we were talking about.
Vital to pick up this card in this spot. And almost regardless of what the Dream Petal Florist discounts, you end up with some major turn potential. So the best one, obviously, discount is either Malygos or Faceless in this spot. And
you just don't want the Floop.
Yeah, and the no draw with Wild Growth here is a nod to like Lich King and Arcane Tyrant still in the deck. If you draw either of those off that card draw, you can get punished by your own Dream Petal Florist. So wise to save the card draw for next turn as well.
If Fenom plays Electro Storm Surge and gets Bloodlust, that's 30 damage plus 9. That's 39, and that still wouldn't be enough to kill Druid right now. Because Druid's at 45.
I'm counting 41 off that.
Oh, 41? It'd be 3 times 5, so it's 15.
Double
times
that.
2 is 30. 30 plus the existing mana.
Yeah, so that's
39.
39.
Oh, sorry, 41, you're right.
Yeah, 41 damage. That's still not
not
enough.
enough. You're right. I for some reason, didn't count the extra 2.
Now, when you tell me that, though, I'm pretty excited about playing Electra and see if I get a Bloodlust about it. Because 41 damage, is within reason to be able to deliver a Killing Blow to Viper on the following turn.
Oh!
It's not it.
Oh no, he's out of time, He's got to do something.
Yeah, unfortunately, he's running out of time.
He didn't even attack with the Serenite Chain Gang.
Yeah, and you see Fenom very upset with taking too much time on that one.
He was thinking about all the possibilities and just wasted too many precious seconds.
So now, Malygos represents, with the Faceless Manipulator, 10 extra damage per Moonfire. And so Fenom, he sees this and he's just confused yet again. He's like, Malygos, nothing? And so he's trying to piece together the rest of it. And obviously, Floop is on your mind. Second Faceless is on your mind. But that's heaps of damage. I mean, you're looking at 30 just on the bonus spell damage.
This guy
is 36 damage with Floop and the second Faceless just from spells.
It's just so funny, his expressions, like, you just can't, like, understand.
Can't fathom what's happening, but this is what's happening.
It's all right, man, he's going to show you. It's like, oh, okay, all right, okay. And that is death.
Shutterwalk.
Sorry, I don't mean to be laughing at someone's misery, but it's just.
No, you do. You do. Don't lie.
It was just so
You
like.
bathe in that man's misery. All
It was
right?
like, oh man.
This is what you wanted, Dan. Are you not entertained?
I am very entertained right now. Viper's up 2-0, and Shutterwalk Shaman is struggling. It's down 0-2. And then the bigger questions remain, can Mechathune Warlock have similar playstyles where they love to be aggressive, but they have an ability to go very long into the game, and they have a lot of burst flexibility.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I'd say that the burst flexibility definitely favors even Paladin, and I think that's one of the reasons why Vipers ended up bringing it to this this tournament. His lineup, I think, is pretty well prepared to fight against combo decks. It's just not the best seated for it. And so if his goal is more to defeat, something that's a tad slower, I think that even Paladin's a better call overall. I think that, you're going to do a little bit worse versus aggro decks, but you're pretty fine against it still. But when it comes to a slow deck, you have much greater potential to actually just outright punish your opponent.
All right, well, Quest Mage is coming up here. And he has Alaneth, which is a very interesting inclusion into a Quest Mage because, a lot of times you have to be very concerned about going deep into fatigue if you're just going to stall out your opponent. But I'm curious about how Quest Mage has been bolstered by Rostakon's Rumble.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest tools it got was actually Banana Buffoon, which is a 3-mana 2/2. This is Battle Cry. Add 2 bananas to your hand. And the bananas are just 1-cost spells that give +1/+1. Well, it's a spell that didn't start in your deck, so that fuels Open the Way game. And it was Team China in the Hearthstone Global Games that really brought this deck to light, that it was a possibility to play Quest Mage in the current metagame. It was a total out-of-left-field deck. They surprised everybody with it. They won every game that they played with it. And it just turned into a thing all of a sudden. It was very, very weird to see. And since then, I think that Rostakon's Rumble has definitely strengthened the deck because of Banana Buffoon. It's so much easier to complete your quest. But also just the way that the metagame has turned into a combo style of metagame. I think in a lot of combo metagames that the Mage is more favored versus a lot of other combo decks because it has such a rapid draw potential, and it can kill you, pretty reasonably on turn 9. So the big factor that it's weak to is aggression, but Mage historically has some of the best ways to actually stall out aggression for just long enough to skate by with a big combo turn.
Well, it's a really good analysis, assuming that Viper was playing a slow deck in this specific matchup. He's playing Even Paladin, which is much better at rushing down their opponents. Secrets like Eye for an Eye can also even be problematic for Mage because they try to deal damage, and it just means that they kill themselves.
Yeah. Two of the big tools I'm looking at in Viper's deck list is number 1, Spirit of the Tiger, a 4-mana 0/3, the Spirit for Paladin class, where when you play a spell, you get a minion with attack and health equal to the cost of the spell you played.
Yep, just came into the hand, by the way.
And Mojo Master Zihi is the second one. It's a 6-mana 5/5 legendary from Rostakon's Rumble. It says Battle Cry. Both players' mana crystals become 5. So if your opponent needs a lot of mana in order to execute their combo, a well-timed Mojo Master Zihi can completely alter the state of that game. So in addition to it being an aggressive deck, it also has some tools to offset at the right time as well. So I do think Fenom's got his work cut out for him.
I want to ask you a question why Fenom decided to skip having 2 armor. He played the research project and then played the Arcane Anomaly, as you can see in the match history bar.
I think the idea would be to find Glacial Shard or to find Firefly and try to start powering up the Spellstone alternatively. And just when those 2 cards didn't come up, you settle for just starting to buff the Spellstone.
Okay.
It's a nominal sacrifice to make, but I don't think it's a vital card in the matchup, and I do think that progress on the game plan is much more important at this stage.
Especially if your opponent's going to be ramping with Spear of the Tiger. That is going to be a scary card.
Yeah, this is really, the classic Mage turn that tries to take advantage of the aggressive decks is Doomsayer and then Frost Nova. But in this case, it's going to be Banana Buffoon. He says, you know what, you only have 6 attack represented on board. Go ahead and play something else.
Well, it's a Corpse Taker with Wind Fury, so Blessing of Kings is going to hurt.
Yeah, that's really the one question I have in my mind is it worth it when the minion is a Wind Fury minion?
Man.
You know, that could be too overpowering for Fenom to handle at this stage.
Viper didn't have a way to answer a Frost over Doomsayer either.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see if this works out because it's looking quite grim. Now that being said, the quest progress is now at 5 with the fully leveled up Spellstone plus the bananas. Now Fenom has to actually cast all of those cards.
Right.
So time is much more limited. But my guess here is that Fenom wanted to, you know, favor development in this spot and really have it take over. I'm just not sure that's going to work out ever.
Yeah, and Consecration in this spot is so backbreaking. Fenom choosing not to trade into the 7/7 to get a little bit more value off of it, but I'm sorry, man. It's just really funny. I love expressive players in Hearthstone. I think they're so great. I mean, look at like Scintillal, why he's such a blast to watch, because he can make sick plays, but he also has great reactions. Okay.
Well, that's a mighty expensive Pyroblast. Phenom's going to scoop it up.
Dang. I really want Quest Nation to do well. Dang it. All right, well, that's it. 3-0. Viper improves to an undefeated score. Fenom, I think, takes...
Right about now.